Hello people of YouTube, TWK here, and welcome to my stream of conscious style video on the original Silent Hill 2, released all the way back many decades ago, and oh my goodness, don't I feel old. Goodness gracious me. Anyways, you may notice that this video is premiering a little later than usual, but in the PM, decided to have things sort of set the mood as this is a horror game after all. And really, who wants to watch a video about a horror game in the middle of the afternoon when it could be later, near the evening? That makes much more sense in my opinion. Nevertheless, here we go, Silent Hill 2, we're talking about the original in 3, 2, 1, go! First, let's brass tacks the story here. We've got James Sunderland, who is brought to the town of Silent Hill via a letter from his wife, who is currently of the non-living variety. If listening to this letter sounds like something only a madman would do, then be sure to stay tuned. On his way to Silent Hill, old Jimbo runs into a girl in a graveyard who gives him directions to the town. This is the first interaction we see James have with another person, and right from the get-go, we can see that there's a bit of uncanny valley going on with them, and thus setting the tone for our journey to come.
I guess I really don't care if it's dangerous or not. I'm going to town either way.
But why?
I'm looking for someone.
Who is it?
Someone very important to me. I'd do anything if I could be with her again.
Me too. I'm looking for my mama. I mean my mother. It's been so long since I've seen her.
Speaking of journey, it is quite the trek to the town. We have to walk or run, if that is your preference, a rather lengthy distance just to reach Silent Hill. I love this, as during this entire section, you're just waiting for something to attack you, especially with all of the unsettling noises. Nothing ever does, but for new players, that doesn't matter. Setting the atmosphere, especially in a horror game, is of the utmost importance, and Team Silent nailed it perfectly. Upon arriving in town, James follows a blood trail that eventually leads him to find a radio and our first enemy, the lying figure. Thankfully, Jimmy found a plank of wood to bonk it to death. From this point forward, the city streets will be flooded with enemies, starting with the lying figures. After this, I venture into a nearby alley, grab some keys, and head to our first location, the Woodside and Blue Creek Apartments. Areas like these are where the bulk of your time playing Silent Hill 2 will be spent, and I will now explain why I prefer lower difficulties. Because the main challenge of the game for me isn't the enemies or the puzzles, it's running around like a loony trying to find all the keys, items, and checking every door to make sure I don't miss anything. Me being myself, I usually end up missing something anyways, because of course I do. Stupid, dumb, neurodivergent brain. Getting back on track, here we'll meet a girl who attacks James and kicks a key out of the way, as well as Eddie and... oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, this is the danger of any old media. It eventually degrades, which is why people like myself have been arguing for games preservation for quite some time now. Eventually, this will happen to every game, and I'll be very sad at the day when the original Silent Hill 2 is 100% completely unplayable on any console. Anyways, after restarting my PS2 and redoing several minutes of gameplay, I made my way back to Eddie and was eventually able to skip the cutscene. Cliff Notes version, he's puking and there's a dead guy in the kitchen. By the way, you need to view every cutscene in this game because certain doors will remain locked if you don't. Yeah, weird system, but I guess at least that means you'll never be in the dark regarding the plot. We also run into the girl from the graveyard again. She introduces herself as Angela, and it's clear that she's packing some baggage.
It's easier just to run. Besides, is what we deserve.
No, I'm not like you.
Are you afraid? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
After attempting to stab James, Angela decides to leave her knife behind, and James decides to take it, although we never use it as a weapon. These apartments are also where we're introduced to Pyramid Head, and I love how the first time we see him, he's just standing there, menacingly. Sorry, I couldn't resist. The second time, he's, well, doing this, and James thinks it's a good course of action to unload a clip into it. Thankfully, nothing ill comes of it, but too bad for him because guess who our first boss fight of the game is against? That's right, Pyramid Head, baby! Just keep shooting and he'll eventually just walk away into the flooded area. After the water drains, and it being our only way out, we take the same path, which leads to the exit, and after eventually reaching Rosewater Park, James meets a woman who strongly resembles his wife Mary, minus the hair and clothes. And we have another unplayable cutscene. Fuck! Well, at least I was able to skip past it without restarting my console this time. Long story short, her name is Maria, and she agrees to tag along with James because he's a simp due to her looking like Mary. After finding a handy-dandy pipe, James and Maria head to the bowling alley, but Maria refuses to go in because bowling just isn't her bag, baby. We then get a cutscene where James meets back up with Eddie, who informs James that the little girl from earlier was here, and her name is Laura. James wants to go after her because, monsters, but Eddie refuses, resulting in one of the most famous lines from the game.
Let's go after her.
Huh? Laura? But why?
Laura. Is that her name?
That's what she said.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
At least Maria is willing to follow James in his pursuit of rescue, which takes us through the gentleman's establishment known as Heaven's Night. It's easily one of the more memorable one-shot locations of the franchise. Our next location is Brookhaven Hospital, and this part took the longest to get through because we've essentially got two locations in one. More on that later. After a little bit of searching, Maria decides to take a little lie down due to feeling ill, and we're off to continue alone. James then meets an old buddy, which leads to him getting knocked off the roof. Lovely, lovely, lovely. At least we eventually find Laura, and it seems like everything is going all hunky-dory, except she ends up locking old Jimmy in a room with our next boss, Flesh Slip. After winning this battle, you may think the hospital is over, but oh no, instead we get our first trip into the other world. This basically means we're exploring the hospital again, all 3 floors, plus a mini basement to boot. On the plus side, we eventually get reunited with Maria, but that doesn't last too long as on our way out of Brookhaven, James and Maria are pursued by Pyramid Head, and while James is able to make it to the elevator, Maria, unfortunately, does not. In the director's office, James finds a map pointing him to his next set of destinations. This part took me way longer than it should have because when I reached the door to the next area, it was locked, but after about 20 plus minutes running around, it magically unlocks. Why? In the words of Sir Lex Luger, I don't know! This 100% feels like the devs fucking with the player, and to this day I am unsure of whether it's a genius move or a petty one. Hey, T-Dub in the editing booth here. Funny story. It turns out all I need to do was just have my flashlight on and it would have been unlocked the whole time, it seems. At least that's the way it looks from this angle. Ooh boy, aren't I a silly Billy. Anyways, back to the review. Our next destination is the Silent Hill Historical Society, and get ready for some big moments upcoming very, very, very soon-ish. First, we have first of several descents, and this initial one is a very, very long one, and the fact that it's all rendered at once on the PlayStation 2 is honestly quite amazing. We eventually end up reaching our real next area, the prison. It's a nice small location where we end up meeting up with Eddie, who has started to lose his grip on reality. Lovely.
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
Oh yeah? Why not? Till now I always let people walk all over me. Just like that stupid dog. He had it coming too.
Eddie?
I was just joking, James. He was dead when I got here, honest. Anyway, I gotta run.
You're going out there alone?
Yeah.
After navigating the prison, James descends further down, leading into the labyrinth. Usually, I end up getting pretty lost here, but either through sheer luck or playing this game for nearly 20 years, I got through rather easily, all things considered. And I was also able to avoid Pyramid Head, who actually randomly roams around down here. Anyways, Maria is somehow still alive, and she drops this bombshell of a line.
You said you took everything, but you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
That moment should have told James everything he could have ever needed to know about Maria, but alas, poor James can't get over the passing of his wife and must cling on to any hope he can, and thus makes his way around the labyrinth to reach Maria. But before we can do that, we meet back up with Angela, who is dealing with her own trauma, which should not need much explanation, especially upon learning that the enemy which she is dealing with is called the Abstract Daddy. Just, oh, man. She then sees right through the facade that James has had the entire time regarding his wife, but James, and by extension first-time players, are confused. More on that later. For now, we must meet up with Maria, who is once again dead. Damn it! At least things can't get worse, and oh fuck baskets, Eddie is now trying to kill James, which leads us to our next boss fight. Eddie! That's right, for the first time ever, James must kill another human being in order to survive, and, well, he doesn't really take it particularly well. No time for that, however, as after leaving the labyrinth, we're somehow back on solid land, and the docks to be more specific. From here, we take what ended up being quite a lengthy boat ride, like a really lengthy one, all the way over to our final destination, Lakeview Hotel. It's here where James and Laura finally have a heart-to-heart regarding Mary, and things start to come into focus. For one, James stated multiple times that his wife died of a disease 3 years ago, but after Laura gives James a letter written by Mary, it's discovered that she died less than 1 year ago. But before any more info can be obtained, Laura notices that she lost Mary's other letter and runs off to find it. After sleuthing around, James eventually makes it to the room where he and Mary rented years ago and watches a videotape which reveals all. Mary didn't die from the disease at all. James murdered her all the way to death. And with the absolute worst bit of timing, this is when Laura finds him, and to the credit of James, he doesn't hide from the truth of what he found. All things considered, Laura takes the news better than I would have and eventually just walks away. Our next encounter is with Angela in a burning staircase, who has resided to her fate. Between James, Eddie, and Angela, Angela is the one I feel the worst for. Being SA'd by her family and now fallen so deep into despair there's just no way out is just fuck. But unfortunately, this is the reality for many people, as much as I really wish it wasn't. From here, we reach the final boss, and depending on some subtle choices throughout the game, you get one of several endings. I'm not going to spoil them, but for the first time ever, I did not get the good one. You may have noticed that I glossed over quite a bit here, and that's because I still want to leave some of the game up for new players to experience. Overall, Silent Hill 2 still holds up as a masterpiece of not only survival horror, but video games in general, and the best part is, these devs don't waste your time. Even with all of my running around super confused, I was able to finish this game in less than 5 hours. That would be damn near unheard of nowadays, but that's kinda how horror games should be in my opinion. 15+ hour games are for action RPGs and the like. Horror is best when kept to a very tight limit. And on top of that, Silent Hill 2 avoids the trap that I've seen in the past 2 Resident Evil games, ending fatigue. When SH2 climaxes, it finishes as opposed to Resident Evil 7 Village, which climaxed like 2 hours before the actual ending. Nevertheless, my biggest complaint with Silent Hill 2, if I must have one, would be how easy it is to miss items required to complete puzzles. My advice to best avoid this situation is to pay attention to the head of James, as whenever he's near an item, he'll look down at it. Doing this might save you 20 minutes of backtracking through the same rooms and hallways. Aside from that, Silent Hill 2 really is damn near perfect, and part of that is how easy to follow the plot is. With this entry being the one with the least involvement from the cult, it really does have the most grounded feel to it, as well as having the least amount of continuity to deal with from the other games. And on top of that, the monster design is peak. There's a reason why other bits of Silent Hill media keep stealing from this game, because they're made so perfectly, especially when you consider that each one is a metaphor from the trauma that the characters are going through. And the atmosphere is just so creepy, from the lighting to the signature fog to the music. It all blends together to create an oppressive town that just wants to punish you for your misdeeds. If for any reason you're interested in playing Silent Hill 2 but you haven't, and you have the means to do so, then I really, honestly, truly cannot recommend it enough. To this day, it's a 10 out of 10 true classic in video gaming. You may have noticed that I did not mention the remake at all up to this point, and that's because I really wanted to put all the focus into this original game, and my biggest problem with the remake isn't so much its quality, because I've heard it's actually rather decent, but it's the fact that it just serves as a replacement for the original, because there will come a point in time where the disc will not work on any copy of Silent Hill 2. I mean, mine's already started to degrade quite a bit, and there will also come a time when no PlayStation 2 will be able to read any disc at all. So when that happens, what do? Just play the remake? Ugh, man, that's gonna suck. And not even because I have any real problems with the remake, because I haven't even played it yet. I probably will eventually, but nevertheless, to me, a remake of a video game should never serve as a replacement, but as an enhancement, something to stand beside it. You know, kind of like how Nintendo did with Link's Awakening. You can play both the original and the remake on Switch. Wish they could do that with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but guess they haven't seen how they can monetize that yet, or get the 3DS controls to work on the Switch, perhaps on the Switch numero dos. Nevertheless, we've seen other companies do this as well. Square has the original Final Fantasy VII, as well as both parts of the remake, available on PlayStation consoles. In fact, Final Fantasy VII Original is available on everything: PC, PlayStation, even Xbox, I believe. Man, isn't that weird? Nevertheless, that's what I would like to see from Konami. Don't just put the remake of 2 up on stores. Also get the original up there, as well as 1, 3, and 4. Come on, what are you doing? In fact, I'll sweeten the pot. Put the other Silent Hill games up there. Put Downpour up there. Homecoming, Shattered Memories. Get them all up there. As you can tell, I am much in the favor of video games preservation. After all, we do want to view these games as art, do we not? Not just things that need to be incrementally improved as technology marches on. Now, I understand why you'd want to do remasters and remakes. All that stuff is well and good, but let us also try our best to preserve the original versions. After all, these devs put hours and hours and hours and hours of work into these games, and that work should be respected. Well, that's just my opinion. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments section. And coming up in episode 99 and 100 of TWK Reviews, those are going to be Patreon choices. Oh yes, as for what episode 99 will be, well, Patron got back to me before recording this, and the choice made was an interesting one. I'll let you all know what that is after the credits. and hope you all have a perfect rest of your day.